And the chill stream for talking in stations. I want to thank you guys for showing up and watching this VOD. For those of you that are joining me live, this is going to be fun, I think. There's a few things that are going to be very important to talk about today. Let me just actually put this out right now. So bam. I'm just sending this out to about 2,400 people. And that is a message that I am going to be running for CSM this year, which is something I thought I would never do. But I'm going to try it, and win or lose, it's going to be fun. And I'll make a case for myself and all that sort of thing later, and try to answer questions and that sort of thing. I also want to talk about today a brawl that happened here at Talking in Stations Public between the Mittani, Lady Scarlet, Harvey Skywalker, and wow, I saw Sword Dragon in there, and wow, is it a brawl? It got kind of raunchy, but we let it ride for a while. And I'm glad we did, because I think it produced the next war that Eve's going to be seeing. We will see how it goes, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So I'm letting people gather. If you want to join us, we're in Chill Stream channel on Talking Stations Discord. Feel free to jump in. I will unmute you as you are trusted to be able to not destroy the channel. And we'll be answering questions and stuff on chat. So let me just unmute some people here.
Yeah, and just to add, so yesterday, man, it was like a little mini riot. But yeah, it was Mittani, Lady Scarlet, Big Red Boat came by, Elo was by,
Elo, yeah.
Rain was there. It was a lot of people.
Oh shoot, Andres is here. How's it going, Andres? He is a candidate for CSM as well. Andres Afanador.
Hey, Matterall, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, man. Thanks.
Hey, let me give you a chance here to talk to people who are watching this either live or on VOD. You're running for CSM, right?
Yes, man. It's funny. It's something I never thought I would do.
I said the same thing. But tell me about yourself real quick. I know you're going to do an interview that's formal with Talking in Stations, but real quick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been playing it for 5 years, half them in Warhol Space. And now I'm here in nullsec, learning from Lady Scarlet the nullsec way of life, enjoying it. And in that path, I encountered this stuff of CSM. All started with a joke in a Talking Stations program, was hosted by Exuki, and that's it. I'm from Colombia. I live in Colombia, and I'm very passionate about the game.
Awesome. Yeah, and you're a great court member. For those who don't know, he does a lot of our logistics and just helps everybody out all the time. Super helpful guy, nice guy. Look out for him for CSM 14. That's Andres Afanador. We also have Manic Velocity here. He's on mute. I imagine he is at work, so can't talk unless he can talk and just wants to be on mute. But he's also running for CSM, so look out for him. Everybody knows him very well. From his programs and all the content he does streaming. It's hilarious stuff. Very high quality, maybe the highest quality stuff out there. And that's Manic Velocity for CSM as well. Did I miss any other CSM members in here? Okay.
I'm genuinely wondering who isn't running for CSM right now.
Well, actually, it's Ron could very easily have run, but he's not. But this is a year that's very odd for CSM. We'll start with CSM. The CSM this year is coming up really fast. Usually there's a long lead time. People talk about it, start campaigning, do their interviews, and not this year. They've changed it all around. So you really have like until the 12th, which is 2 days from now, so Sunday, to get your candidacy formally in. And if you don't, you're not going to be running. So you have 2 days still to run for CSM. And this year, I believe we're up to like high 20s or early 30s as far as number of people running. That is low. We've had 70 people run before. Normally, it's around 50 people. And this year, it's stacked with a lot of high-profile players, mostly from nullsec, again. And, but then you do have other candidates that are not from nullsec. So you just have to look at the list when it becomes official. In our Discord, we've decided to go a little bit bigger than we went last year, and we've created a whole section called CSM 14 chat. And you can put your links for candidacy in there. You can ask candidates questions in there, and you can get responses. So use those channels to campaign and to ask these guys questions that are campaigning.
I would like to premise that with the fact that I think the questions in the answer section are in slow mode or in delayed mode or whatever the hell the Discord version of it is.
Mhm.
But essentially, you don't write like a tiny little. If you're one of those people who writes like a sentence in like 5-6 lines, like you're not going to like those channels, because essentially you can only write one sentence every 6 hours or something like that. So, or at least not one sentence, but like you can only hit enter and send something to that channel once every 6 hours. So
Yeah.
make it good when you do.
Normally, we don't really like guys. If you can help me unmute people, guys has the privileges in here. Can you help me unmute people? Jump into the channel. Normally, what we like at Talking in Stations is finish your thought and then press return. That's what we call it. And we want. We would rather have somebody write a paragraph than spit out 5 sentences. It's easier to read, sure, because if you're reading vertically, it's easier to read, but we want to promote discussion, not a barrage of comments and then a giant scroll back. So what we try to do is get people to finish your thought and then hit return in all cases, in all channels, but especially in the CSM channels, because we've delayed how many times you can ask things. Okay.
I have one very important
Yeah.
question about your CSM candidacy.
Yeah.
I get it. Like you start January your own service, like own station, talking in stations, own things. It almost sounds like you were preparing for your CSM bit from the start. Have your own network and good way to promote yourself to get yourself on CSM.
No, I think, look, it would have been much smarter for me to stay with INN and talk to Aerith and talk to Matani and say, let me get in your ballot here, and leverage that kind of relationship into a stronger candidacy, if that's what I was doing. But I wasn't. I very much was on the fence. First of all, I was not going to run for CSM for a long time because it just interferes with what I want to do. And that is to tell the stories of EVE Online. So it was not about that. And what happened was Brisk Rubal got banned, and my wife said, what happened? So I explained that he was this real-life politician, and he went and joined the CSM, and he got permabanned for the rest of his career in EVE Online. And my wife said, do that. So she wanted me to run for CSM.
So you could get permabanned.
So I could get permabanned, she could have me back. But actually,
okay.
I joke a bit. But when she literally said, you should do it, I won't hold it against you, kind of thing. It really opened up the possibility of doing it in a way I hadn't really thought about. And when I was looking at the field, I was thinking, who can really represent what I would like represented? And I didn't. No offense to anybody running, but I didn't, from the stuff I was reading and the people that I knew, I wasn't really seeing that. What I'm seeing is the opposite, which is a lot of game experts, especially from nullsec. And my candidacy is going to be the opposite of that. Non-expert and somebody who cares about the way people talk about EVE, the way people communicate about EVE Online, and the sci-fi aspects of it that people think about. Almost like the dream of the virtual world, the virtual science fiction world, as opposed to the nuts and bolts of balancing ships. I think you can have both, and you should have both. But I think CCP has kind of lost its allure to people outside the game that might be prospective players, because the Jesus feature is gone, right? Like the imaginary, the image making, bold thinking that EVE was kind of known for seems to be giving way to a lot more balance and refining of the game that we already have. And I think that people want to play in their imagination as much as they want to play an actual video game.
You know, I also just want to add that I'm a very persuasive guy and I am relentless. And I have been pushing Matterall for weeks because I think he would be excellent at CSM and be able to talk about, really interesting aspects to the game, outside of the game, and the sort of unbiased kind of expertise. So I've been pushing him quite hard.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say Matterall is unbiased, but I would say that Matterall understands his bias and can kind of, keep it in check. You get me?
Thank you.
But that's my personal opinion, Matterall.
Yeah. No. It's totally. I'm really appreciative, Ron, of your confidence, and I don't really know what, how you vote for CSM members. Like I was thinking about this because I obviously am a voter too. So I was thinking like, oh, how am I going to vote for a CSM member? Do I just vote my ballot? Do I vote like what other people want? Aerith makes the Imperium ballot pretty much, and he puts people on there that he thinks are good. And guess what? They are good. The people that come from Goon Swarm and Imperium are really, really good CSM members. They're smart, they're mature, they work cooperatively, and they work for the benefit of the game. And you have the same thing with other groups. They're putting their expert up there, and all that is very much appreciated. But what I had a problem with, and the only reason that I think there's a lane to drive through in this whole process, is if we get too much of that. If everybody's point of view, whether they mean to or not, is nullsec and what's important for nullsec and the epic big fights, and that's all there is, then other play styles are going to suffer. And I think you saw wormholes suffer. And so I'm encouraging everyone that is in a wormhole and plays that gameplay to vote for a wormhole candidate that understands what it is you guys need to protect for your gameplay, so that you don't get run over or paved over. Well, nullsec is trying to build, balance and build tools that work to generate their gameplay. EVE is not one game. EVE is 36 games, and I take no credit for that. That's what. Let me just turn this off. That is what CCP Fozzie told me. 1 second. Momentum killer, this phone, and I haven't figured out how to turn it off because it's a brand new phone. Anyway, so yeah, it's like 36 different games, and I honestly think that there are a lot of underrepresented areas of the game. My favorite one, and the one that I like, is what are the stories of EVE Online? How do those stories get generated? What actually seeps out to the greater, the greater gamers population, or even people who are interested in intellectual games. This is not a video game that constantly needs to be balanced. This is an imaginary world, and that can appeal to a lot of people that don't even want to play video games. In fact, a lot of people who play EVE Online won't play other video games. And you saw that when the Imperium formed, when they changed into the Imperium and they went to raid other games, very few people followed them because people don't want to go to another game. I think that was one of the lessons learned from that whole experiment. People like this game. People who don't play video games like this game. And that's who I think is an underserved population. And I think that I can bring something to that.
You're referring to the whole H1Z1 thing, right?
Well, and there was a couple other games too, right? There was, help me out here, but what was the other space game that you ran around and shot each other up?
Planet Side 2.
Thank you.
Hey,
Oh, Carneros is here.
Don't,
Yeah.
Don't knock H1Z1. That was a terrible game.
No, I mean it formed what you see now, right?
to be fair, it wasn't a terrible game. It was just it harbored a terrible community, and I don't mean like when I say harboring a terrible community, I don't mean Imperium. I mean like, you know, even even if you take Imperium out of the whole kind of thing, like the community in there was just absolutely terrible. But
Okay.
I digress.
All right, yeah, you're digressing. Let me finish up this campaign pitch, and it's not practiced. It's really more of a discussion. I'm just kind of freelancing it right now, but I will answer a couple questions here, and then we'll go on to the bigger story, which is the big food fight that's starting a war, which is great.
Gitzo and Lady Scarlet has one.
She's quoting Gitzo Gutface, who's a fan. That is a hell of a name, by the way, Gitzo Gutface. Will it be difficult talking and speculating on Eve stuff on air while under NDA? Are you concerned about the possibility of bans and drama? Well, like I said before, my wife is looking forward to me getting banned if I become a NDA-signed CSM. That aside, I don't think it will be difficult because one of the things that I've done in the past as a writer is definitely projected into the future. What is the consequence of this change and how will that affect the game? And in a lot of my writing, Brave New World, that I wrote an article, I think that was for the new capital changes, and all the stuff that I've written, I kind of got it out of my system because at a certain point I thought it doesn't really matter what I predict because I don't go back and say, look, I was right about this or I was wrong about this. So I'm kind of gotten out of the predicting business. I'm more into the analysis business now. If I bring people on, I try to keep my opinions secondary to their opinions because they're on as a guest, as a specialist. So I always try to give them room to make the opinions, to make the case. And I try to put mine secondary. And even if I have opinions about where things are going to go, I'm trying to even muffle those because those don't matter. It doesn't really matter where I think the game's going to go. It's more about the analysis of what's happening now, and when mechanics change, an analysis of what that could mean for players and what they should look for if they want to get involved in the market. Where's the right place to get involved there? Or if they want to prepare their troops, what kinds of things should they be thinking about? And there are much better people that are able to predict stuff. So I let them do most of the talking. Will I worry about that? Yeah, I'll have to be more guarded, but I've also been doing this a long time, and I think that I can manage what is for public and what is not. You guys have to understand one thing. I know a lot more than I actually say because a lot of people tell me stuff that I don't tell the public. So I'm always holding a lot more information than I appear to hold. And sometimes that's why I'm stumbling around trying to figure out how much to say and how much not to say.
But the nice thing is the fact that a lot of candidates who run for CSM because they feel like they know the game a bit in certain areas a bit better than either most people, or they feel like they are a bit better subject matter experts than, say CCP in terms of knowing their game. Whereas I get the impression from you, at least, Matterall, that areas of the game that are less served by those candidates would be more served by, someone like you who has a more overall perspective on Eve, right?
The question I have with that, because you say you want to do that, you want to focus on that, etc. But what if CCP is not want to focus on that? How can you serve them then? Why do you assume that that people who are in there now are not representing those people, but since CCP doesn't have the focus on that, they cannot really do anything about it, or more that they are doing now?
I think I understand your question is what if CCP doesn't want to hear any marketing advice? Of course they don't want to hear marketing advice. They have a marketing plan. They have strategies. They have all kinds of stuff that's, if they're doing it right, and Carneros can help me out here, they have an idea of how to reach people who are not playing the game and maybe even when to reach those people and stuff like that. What I think
my question more is, no, you're saying I want to focus on that group and those kind of people. Why are you thinking that the people who are currently on CSM are not focusing on that at the moment, but CCP
Well,
doesn't have that focus and
because
just doesn't want to work with that?
Well, that can be said for any aspect of the game, right? Like you can say like, well, wait a minute, I think you can say that for any aspect of the game. What if CCP doesn't want to focus on that? And what if CSM is already advising them on that sort of thing? This isn't about what the CSM has done in the past necessarily. I think it is the world of experience and sensitivities that the CSM members have brought and where the CSM focus has been. And they tell you where the focus has been. They have told you the 4 or 5 things they agree on before they go into a meeting. And they're on balance, and they want to know that CCP plays the game. And I think there's like 3 others, if anybody can help me out on what those are, over the last 2 summits, right? So they're telling you what their priorities are. And a lot of it, if the whole game is about balancing and rebalancing, then you're making the game for the people who already play the game, right? Because that's who balancing and rebalancing affects. It's the people who are bored, who are like, hey, I need something new. I've already solved this, get it, keep us off our feet. And that's important. You have to have that. But you also have to have stuff that's forward thinking and hope building so that people can aspire to play the game. They can see the investment in the long term, not just the short term. And so you want to have sensibilities, and you want to bring those sensibilities to CSM, because when something gets introduced, the people who are commenting on it are thinking, at least in my opinion, the CSM are thinking, how does this affect the meta as it is? And I don't know if they're thinking about how is this going to inspire people who don't play the game to maybe play the game, or people who are just starting out, and these sorts of things.
But I think like last year we could see, and like the years before that, the CSM focus was really on Wardecs to get that solved. But the focus wasn't really a CCP on that. And that's really something that what new players want, and that's just why I'm asking the question. That what is there special that you can bring towards that the current CSM of other CSM members, because you say, I think don't see that really by the current people who
that's
are
a very good
doing that.
Yeah, I get your
what is not that special than what you do and what is already not done.
I get your question, and I appreciate your passion about it. And here's the thing. That's a very good example of what I'm talking about. The CSM said, hey, this is a priority, fix the Wardec mechanics in high sec, for instance, because it's really just abuse. And credit to CSM for eventually getting CCP to actually look at the statistics, because it was shocking to me to have CCP saying like, oh my God, we didn't realize how bad this was. How could they not realize how bad it was? We had been talking to them through the media for a long time. People like Commander A's was constantly talking about it. You have Ashtarothi constantly talking about it. How could CCP be blindsided by the statistics of that? Either CSM didn't bring it up until recently, or who knows what. In any case, they finally saw the data and they said, oh my God, we're losing a lot of players because this mechanic doesn't work very well and it doesn't really promote it. Now, when I talked about when we had a show on it and we brought in some of the gankers and stuff like that, not the gankers, but the people who actually use Wardec mechanics to oppress little groups and stuff, people expected us to really hammer them. But I took a very different approach. I looked at it and said, there's something very magical about corporations fighting each other in the future in space. That's inspiring. That's the kind of vision that makes very interesting to people that don't even play it. But what happened after that, when CCP said, here's how we're going to fix it, and we're going to fix it in 3 different stages, there was not very much imagination in that fix. Sorry. The fix was, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to balance it. We're going to balance it. But they didn't take it anywhere else. It's not elevated in any way. It's not even more interesting than it used to be. It's just more balanced, right?
What is not interesting about the fact that people who are getting attacked now have ability to attack something? The people have they have ability to attack a structure or something that is from the attackers themselves that get Wardec. They now have a place that they always can go towards and attack them and get allies there and other people there to kill their structure and enter war that way. So they have So what is not, maybe they don't bring it inspiring, but it allows a complete new gameplay that can be very interesting for a lot of people to have wars in high deck and really have that corporation war. Because if you see, like in the future, yeah, you want to have wars in corporation. What is now the really end of a war of a corporation? If you kill their headquarters, and then that corporation is on for a while. And if you can do that way, then is that not like really the inspiring space shooter thing? Maybe they should bring it differently.
No, I don't think that's inspiring at all. I just think it's a little more mechanical, a little fairer, a little more balanced. I don't think it's inspiring. It doesn't inspire me at all. I think what they could have done is said, look, here's the thing. If you undock and you see a couple ships fighting, can you get involved? You don't even know if you could do that. Like, there's a lot more room to say, we want to inch you into combat. If you decide one day you're a little bit bored, you're a little bit angst, you undock and you see a group fighting, and somehow you identify that they're at war. That's why they're fighting. And if you want to join in that fight, how do you do that? Do you just shoot them? No, because Concord will wipe you out. But how can you just get yourself, a third party who has nothing to do with it, involved in a war? When, there's opportunities like that. And I don't know if that perspective is impossible to do, but that's the kind of imagination I think you need to have when you're at CSM, to say, how does somebody get involved? That's a huge thing. Right now, we rely on people who already know how to get involved to get us involved. But how does a person who's playing this game get involved so they can do a little of this and they can do a little of that? And I think Wardeck mechanics really just did exactly what the problem is, which is constantly balancing what's already here for players who are already here, not for players that might want to join this because, hey, if you undock and see a fight, you can jump in. That's more imaginative.
And have you watched the new mechanics they have thought about, like getting players involved in a new agency?
Yeah, I love
that. They
didn't
hold. Yeah,
that's great stuff.
Okay, no, I understand a bit. I'm still not convinced a bit by the things, etc. What you said, but at least I have now more an idea from what you're planning and what you're doing and etc. And just I have always a big worry with CSM candidates, and you see that a lot. Yeah, I want to focus on this, and we need to change that, etc. And then, like, if people say like something like that, then I'm already like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You can only advise is what CCP is planning to do. So you can sell, I want to focus on wormholes of other places. But if CCP doesn't want to focus there in that year on wormholes because they have other things in the pipeline, you can also name it. But for the rest, if that you're the big wormhole candidate and you can talk about that, or etc. But you don't have any idea what for the rest is going on. And CCP is that year basically what is there doing there for the rest, then it's like, yeah, that's a wasted place because you cannot advise them on that really because you don't know anything about it. So that's why I really get like
I don't have an issue that way. I understand what you're saying and I agree with it, and it's the smart way to look at CSM. If you have one issue candidates who believe in a certain thing and their thing isn't on the table, then it's a waste of space. So you need players that know the game very well. I've been playing since 2008, and I've played every aspect of the game except maybe one that I don't know about because I don't know what I don't know. I know what I haven't done. I haven't done drug running, but it sounds fun. Maybe I will. But anyway, you need players who are, first of all, have been playing this game a while, I think, unless you want that new bro perspective, which is totally understandable as well. But you want players who have played many, many facets of the game, so they're not wasted space when their topic doesn't come up. And I also think you need sensibilities. That's what you should vote for. You should vote for a person you can trust. You can trust to kind of speak about certain, certain angle towards the game. And that's really kind of what you're voting for. You're voting for a person who has to sit there and on the fly be able to take all their knowledge and talk about it inside and use it to make judgments inside the game at the time. Sure, you can prepare for CSM summits and that sort of thing, but every week there's a lot of work that's done. It's not the summits. And I think that you need somebody who has the stuff already that can sit at the same table with CCP and talk to them as peers. And I think a lot of the CSM are like that now, but I don't think you just pick somebody who is who's really good at a certain topic, because if their topic doesn't come up, yeah, of course, they're just going to be wasted space. I didn't answer that. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, but then I have to break into it because you said when the start, I'm not an expert or anything. I don't know a lot about the mechanics, etc. And now you're saying you need people who need to know a lot and will be able to directly, when there, without real a lot of preparation, to answer the questions on CCP. And how do you link those two things then together?
I do exactly that, because you have people, at least half the people who are going to be in there are going to be subject matter experts, right? You have subject matter experts like Suetonia, this last one, right? And we'll have another Suetonia type. You have subject matter experts like Exuki. If he gets elected, will be able to just at any moment talk about wormhole space and what works and what doesn't work in it when they're making changes for nullsec. That's good representation, and you need that kind of representation. But you also need the urging of CCP to think in ways that attracts new players to get involved. And I think you can have both. I'm saying there are going to be those candidates. There's going to be subject matter experts, and I'm not going to replace them. I'm going to be in addition to them if I'm elected to CSM. So you have both. I'm not an expert in the same way that Elo is. Elo runs fleets, 24 hours a day or 12 hours a day, sometimes running 12 accounts. There is no way for me to do what he does. First of all, I can't do it in real life. But second of all, he's a smart guy who's been doing it a long time. And I don't expect that I can go in and represent PvP or large scale stuff like he can. And that's what I meant when I said I'm not an expert, because I'm not Suetonia, who's amazing at figuring out fits and working, or any of these streamers who go out in PvP like Joe Bain or B. I forgot
But
Bjorn B.
Bjorn B.
What will we bring those people when we're talking about industry and all the industry things, and or how to set up a roll call, all those kind of things? Because you're saying like we don't want to have one issue people, we don't want to have wormhole people.
Those aren't one issue people. They aren't one issue people. They are not. Elo Knight does a lot of trading. He SRPs his whole thing. He's not a one issue guy, and neither is Suetonia. Suetonia can talk a lot about, I mean, he's really kind of like on a Fozzie level of remembering things. So these guys are not one issue people. I think what I'm saying is that there are people who are really good at the game, who are really good at technically balancing the game and talking about what will work and what won't work in the game. And you need those people in CSM, and you have those people in CSM. Just not all of them. Sometimes you need people to come in and say, look, I worked in film. I understand story. I have 4 or 5 years of actually writing and talking and building now a 2,500 person Discord that houses people who talk about EVE Online, and we've managed to curate it in a way that it's mostly discussion based. Not about yesterday, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But mostly discussion based, talking about the stories of EVE Online, trying to figure out what's important and what's not to people who play the game. And that is a skill too.
Okay, at least I have some thoughts. I will think about it. Thank you for answering the question.
Yeah, anytime, man. Listen, you're always welcome, and so is anybody else. There's a lot of questions to catch up on, and I'm hogging up all the space. If Manik or Andres, who's also running for CSM, want to say some stuff too, they're welcome to.
And also just a reminder that, on our Discord on the left, you mentioned it before, but we're going to have all the CSMs there talking, about their platforms, and you can ask questions and you can get answers, and it's heavily moderated. So, further discussions, not just poking Matterall, but, you can poke everybody.
There's a second thing I need to answer, because other people are, first of all, that's Apple Pear brings up the best question. Why you? What do you have to offer? And I think I've answered that. But if not, please ask me questions, and I'll be doing these chill streams for a while to answer those questions as well. The other thing is I'm not running as a celebrity. Like it's not, it's Matterall and he wants to put another medal. There's the one where he gets killed on a free port, and right next to that it wants to put on a CSM badge. Nope, that's not why I'm running at all. And I've thought about how to do this. One way was for me just to kind of sign up and not campaign at all, because people should already know what I am and what I believe. So, or people that are going to vote for me anyway. And I just thought that was incredibly, I asked people for advice, and someone close to me said, that's a very arrogant way to do it. So you're going to have to, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it like everybody else, and you're going to campaign hard, and you're going to earn it. And I really believe that's true. So I'm not doing this just because I'm Matterall and I worked at EN24, and then I worked at TMC INN and did all that stuff for them, and then built TiS. And this isn't the end of my big ambition. It's actually not even a part of that at all. It's more, I can't sit on the sideline one more year and see the game be all about balance over and over and over again. I miss the big imaginary expansions that we used to have. I miss the vision. I don't think it's gone. I just think it isn't prioritized. Maybe with Hilmar back, a lot of that will come back too. But I want to help that happen. I think this game is so neat and so interesting, and it's played by so many interesting people that you should be really proud of this game. It's a professionals game. The people who play this game are like professionals in real life. And that's something that's important. It's not just a video game with colorful little cartoon characters that shoot, rainbow blasts at each other. This is a game about thinking, strategy, organizing people. And what track record do you have to show that you've done that? I think you just look at the, when I was at EN24, I built up that place. I got CCP involved. We had interviews. I did the podcast, EN24 podcast. I brought a lot to that organization. And then I went to TMC and I did the same thing. And then I transitioned it to INN, and I was a huge part of that. And then I built up Talking in Stations, and we built that to 2,500 people in Discord. And we have the best guests and some of the worst conversations in public. But that is all. If you put that in context, that's a pretty big organization in EVE Online. It just happens to be above EVE Online because I wanted to analyze the game and talk about the game because that's where my interest is. Okay, so the second question is, oh no, Matterall burned himself out, and we like him where he is, and he doesn't need to be on the CSM. And I get that fear. I understand that fear. I actually recently had to take a step back and look at real life and say, I got to reprioritize stuff because I'm in the chair constantly. And not just, really the stuff that was eating up my time was sitting around and talking with people, which I did nightly for a long time. And that was eating up a lot of hours. And so I wasn't being active. So I've changed that all around, and it's been really good for me. My real life is great. My health is getting back to, I'm getting fit again, which is feels really good. And I've been doing this now for 4 years and haven't burnt out. So I don't think I'll burn out. And I don't think CSM for me is, as far as EVE goes, I'm in shape. I'm in shape to talk to CCP about EVE Online. I'm in shape to talk to players about EVE Online. And I'm very much in shape to listen to players in EVE Online. So in that sense, I won't burn out. No, there will be time shifting, and TiS will take a bit of a hit, but this is the good part of it, and this is what really convinced me. Good managers need to know to get out of the way so that other people can manage, because it turns out they do it better sometimes. And I've seen that happen with TiS. I've started to get out of the way of some things, and those things have been run really well, really efficiently, and are working out just fine. So that's where the sacrifice will come out. Will I burn out? I would never burn out talking about EVE Online.
I know that feeling.
Ashtarothi.
How's it going, man? Congratulations on your decision.
Yes, you've been here before. And so if you have any advice, let me know. And okay, so a question here from Pleasure Dome. Matterall, what changed your mind? Last week you chuckled at the idea. Last week I chuckled at the idea. Here's what changed my mind. My wife basically said, yeah, I'm serious. You should do it. I thought she was kidding because we talked about, as I talked about earlier, for people who weren't here, when Brisk got banned, she's like, I explained to her how interesting it was. You have an open mic, Ash. Ash, open mic, buddy. So my wife was like, so I explained to her, hey, this politician guy ran for CSM and has been permanently banned for accidentally leaking or something like that. And she's like, well, you should run for that so you can get permanently banned. And it was a joke. And so I just kind of treated it as a joke. And she's always been against me doing a lot of Eve stuff, but I think she's really come around because she's seeing what I've built for the third time. You know, built a following, built an audience, and that sort of stuff. And so really what happened was she said, no, I'm serious. You should run for CSM if you want to, because, you know, you need to open yourself up to the universe for changes and for things that scare you and stuff like that. So I think that's what changed. That coupled with the desire to actually be in the room when Eve is being talked about on what CCP has planned and what they're maybe not looking at, like some of the blind spots. Because I think right now, the devs plus the CSM are very, very balance oriented. And again, balance is great for people already playing the game. It's not so great for people who want to come into this imaginary world. And so I want to lend, at least be one voice to lend that perspective. I think one strong voice to lend that perspective, to say, don't think about, as Apple Pear was saying, Wardeck mechanics is just balancing them out so it seems more fair. Think about how it can be imaginary. Think about how a player can see the battle and know that these two groups are at war and that corporations can go to war and that you can jump in if you want to and Concord won't kill you right away. Like, these are the kinds of things that need to be pushed. CCP can think about it, but if the CSM players are saying like, well, we don't really care about that, we really just want it to be more fair and more balanced, then that's the limitations that CCP is going to work within, I think. And I think you can push a company to say, like, dream bigger like you used to.
Arthur, can you hear me?
Yeah, Andres.
Can you put your wife in contact with mine?
My what?
Your wife in contact with mine.
Yeah, yeah, they both speak Spanish.
No way.
Yeah, my wife's Argentinian.
Cool.
Yeah, I know you're Colombian, which is awesome.
Matterall, I would say that you're correct about the whole needing to capture new people and what it would take to capture new people. But I would actually take it one step further. The nature of free to play in particular is one of people drifting off and then coming back. So recapturing players who have drifted off is just as important, if not more important, than capturing new players. And one of the first questions I often get asked is, quote, I've been gone since X time. What has changed since then? And the problem is that it's difficult to be like, oh, well, they've balanced this, so now Sleipner, or Spitballs aren't as damaging. Like, they want to hear about Citadels. They want to hear about the Abyss. They want to hear about the things that are different now than was before.
Yeah. The expansions, I think, and they were bigger at the time. When I think back, I don't want to go back to 2007, 2008, 2009, or 10. Like, I don't want to go back there. I'm trying to figure out why those felt so big and so expansive. They were true expansions. You had more. It wasn't just more ships. You had more space. You had wormholes, which was like 3,000 new systems, and they were weird and they were scary. And I was in Adhocracy when that was first starting out. And, it was like, whoa, there's content to come back for. Even ghost sites, in my opinion, lit up my imagination about, oh, there's new content to go back for. And I think that needs to be really pushed as much as possible. You want to bring back players by making features happen, not just saying, hey, we're finally getting rid of pause code after 5 years. Isn't that great? I think I don't know what that says to a player that used to play and it's like, oh, they got rid of pause code. That's great. Terrific. I'll tell you what's a big thing that is very technical is the 64-bit client. The visualization of EVE Online is going to change dramatically. And you've seen it with our 2 tests. That is a big deal. I think that will appeal to a lot of players because the idea of being a small ship and flying, your camera flying past a giant dreadnought with, giant cannons firing is dramatic, visually dramatic, and that will help. Okay, so that is my first announcement, and that is that I am running for CSM. I will do more campaigning, and these chill streams will be maybe Ask Me Anythings for the next few weeks. This Sunday, I'm not going to be around. Carneros is going to be running Talking in Stations, and it's a big week. because we have a new war, which is what we'll talk about next. Now, if we
Hello,
had
people.
Carneros.
Just saying hello.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what you're going to cover this Sunday and stuff like that, but do you know what happened yesterday in Discord?
I did poke my face in from time to time and then run away to recover.
Yeah.
I
did.
I got trampled underneath it all.
I was there for it.
All
It
right.
was glorious.
I think Ron, can you tell us what happened yesterday in Talking in Stations?
Yeah, so yesterday in hashtag public, our public text channel here in TiS Discord, I don't know what spurned it, but it just kind of went off, and it was fun to watch. But Matani was in talking about, how goons weren't on the pie chart, right? The pie chart of shame, or whatever they're calling it. And Lady Scarlet was here, Elo was here, and there were several other people, in there as well. But it just kept getting heated and heated and more heated, and then, you know, it was like it was kind of like people were kind of feeding off each other, right? Like, and it just kept getting more pressure and more pressure, and Matani was talking about, going to go to war, et cetera, and kind of having fun with it. Rain was in here; she's in here now, and then that kind of like escalated, and then it just slowly died down, and that lasted for 2 or 3 hours. And then today we see the post of the quote leaks unquote, about Matani wanting to take goons to war up on the north, and I guess the pretext is something around anti-bots, and then that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah. The pretext for the way that the Matani is looking at this is the fact that many elements of a polar opposite sort of politically in game have always used the whole botters sort of thing to basically leverage the what would you call it, basically like the scourge of botting to be something that is very much an Imperium thing, like being basically happening in Imperium alliances. And with this kind of new information that was brought out by Peligro, the Matani kind of sees this as vindication, I guess, that it wasn't, and to him it's basically a sign that now we know which organizations are botting or are kind of harboring botters, at least in some way, shape, or form. And so he wants to kind of go to war with them in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that's his premise of it. Obviously, you can read the information in various different ways.
So what's this, an invasion plan leak? Do we know where they're going to invade?
I'm not sure whether it's an invasion or an extermination, but I don't think it's an exterminate anything. Like, I mean,
Number two.
he was making waves in the sense that it was like an extermination attempt. I don't think you can exterminate people in Eve. Like, how can you kill immortals, right? Like, except for running them out of the game by making them hate the game. But
Well,
I don't know.
Well,
I think
what's dead cannot die, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of
But
like
comes back with more bots.
This whole situation though is very reminiscent of the Great War, right? So the Imperium, or rather Goonswarm, was most successful when they had this narrative of their enemy being unfair and cheating, and let's rise up and destroy them. That is a narrative that they've used before, and it was highly effective, and I'm not surprised they're using it again.
yeah, because Bob used to use the whole narrative of those goons over there, they are the problem for the game. They are the thing that are destroying the game, etc., etc. And it kind of almost, it just to some degree, it does kind of feel the same sort of way again. Like,
Well,
you know,
this is the way I see it. If you look at the map, and if you think about last year, 2018, what happened is that PL decided they were going to attack Test, and so they went south to join up with like Skill U and other groups, Winter Coalition, to attack again Legacy, or Test and Legacy, the coalition. And so what that immediately triggered right away is the full-scale rush up to the north and invade them. Now, why would they do that? Because they're forcing the north to make a choice. You're either going to fight in the south, or you're going to lose in the north. And so that forced, that really cost a lot of, it took a lot of keep stars away from the north, because they were pounding the north and had a lot of success destroying keep stars, not necessarily taking territory, which is actually hard, because even then CO2 was jamming up the area really well, including my keep star, which was in Onan. And so they had some success in that way. And what you're seeing is kind of the same thing. You have NC deployed right now to Mailpass, and they're trying to pacify the area from Laserhawks, who's getting help from Goon Swarm. And I don't know if it's going very well, but I think the whole botting thing has created the excuse to put pressure on the north to force NC back to the north away. So they'll have to choose between defending the drones or defending the north. And I think it's a smart move, especially if they move everything up north. And I think that probably is what you're going to see.
I'm just going to say from, a line member perspective, at least since I got back into EVE, I've heard the accusations of botting left, right, and center, like, oh, Imperium, they're just a bunch of dirty botters. So, this is just Mittani doing what he does. He capitalizes on something in a moment, which we have that moment now. So, time to rally the war horns.
Yeah, I just realized Killah Bee's in here. I don't know if he knows more than we actually do. How's it going, Killah Bee?
Normal. I'm about to leave for some movies, I guess.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about this? The stirring up of war talk?
Yeah, I read the Reddit thread.
Do you know anything else behind the scenes?
Not really. I mean, I've seen all the goon pings, obviously. We know that that they announced what they announced, and we'll see what happens. I don't like making predictions before stuff happens. I don't like to interpret stuff too much. I think it's usually not. You can't really predict how these things go, so I'm just gonna wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
Get some good content.
What do you think they're gonna do? Any idea?
It depends a bit how serious they are, but if they if they just come up with, if they deploy the main Delve goons, I don't really know, man. Like, I feel like if they just go back to 6 RCQ, that would be incredibly boring. I don't think they're going to do that. They might play something different, but honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah.
If they bring Superbus, there's not too much we can do, but obviously with the new jammer mechanics, we can at least make it painful, so it should be fun. And then we'll see what happens. Like I said, I think it'll be, I'm actually really looking forward to it. I don't really like chasing around 30, 40 man jackdaw gangs with my own 30, 40 man jackdaw gang. That's not really the kind of content I like to play. And, if Mittani beats the drums like this, it's a good sign. It probably means there's going to be some big content coming, and that's the kind of shit I like to do. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Either way.
I may be able to kind of give you a little compare and contrast for what's to come here, if you'll allow me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, one of the SIGs I'm in is Liberty, who, as everybody knows, has been up in the north hazing bot stuff and things like that. Normally on fleets, we get, maybe 60 dudes. Last night we had a full fleet.
255.
Yeah, and you still got smashed too.
Actually, I'd suggest, like last night, that you revisit that and apply both systems.
Yeah, Killah, I wouldn't say that they got smashed. You might want to recount that with the Horde dreads that got owned, that nobody came to.
Well, I think no matter what the reason, I think war is good, and I think war is fun, war is content, and even if it's the war of the teddy bears, who cares? Bring it. I think we need a big war this summer, and hopefully this isn't the first or the last, or whatever. Like, we just keep rolling. We need to lose more supers and titans.
He's going to get his own version of SummerSlam.
Yeah, I think if you look at the people who like to write stuff, there's a lot of naming of the war and stuff, and there was a lot of bad language kind of spread around. But we didn't clamp down on it because we figure if Matani is talking to opposition inside of Talking in Stations, we'll let that happen. We didn't want to even though he's kind of violating some of the rules a little bit, not as bad as it could have been. And I blame Rain really for bringing up the all the ass
bringing up that
all the ass salad
I do
stuff.
as well. I do as well.
Yeah, you're
I
not the
blame her.
only one. There's you guys are. There's a few of you guys. So we're trying to now put out those flames, because let's get away from describing it that way. But it's funny to see how people really want to name wars. And I was pointing out that the FCs don't really do that. If you ask Vince, what's the name of this war? He'll be like, what war? What are you talking about? He doesn't name wars.
We don't really care.
Yeah.
Again,
the shootings.
I love your enthusiasm. I really do, and I think it's good for Eve. It makes great articles, it makes great headlines and stuff. But the fact that you guys are trying to name a war that's not even a war yet is just so ridiculous to me that I'm like, whatever. I'll just let these guys talk about stuff when I actually get shit done.
By the way, we're not trying to name the war.
TiS
is not.
Anything is happening.
But TiS.
It feels a bit like we had during the big war that would be in the south about between TiS and Everty, etc. I haven't seen a really big war there or any big things, etc. Just some skirmishes, and they were talking about that for weeks in end, and you really have to see what comes from it before you hype it up that big.
Right. I'm sorry that I interrupted Killah Bee there because he was saying something important, but I want to make sure everybody understands that Talking in Stations is not naming a war. We don't name wars at all. That's not our policy. And Carneros can back me up on that. What I'm saying is the people inside a Discord that come in and visit, we're all everybody's having a good time trying to name a war. And I think you know why they do that? Because I think that's how they can contribute. They kind of want credit for that because they can't really run fleets or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
but we're not doing that. It's individuals just wanting to kind of be able to put their little thing on the event to be able to say I was the one who did that. Man, we don't need to analyze that too much. But
it's too early. We haven't gotten to the first date yet, and people are trying to name the baby. It's way out of order.
But what I like, and what reminds me of oh yeah, that's EVE Online is and there are many EVE Onlines, but that's to me the tradition of EVE Online is that the people who are making the stuff happen are not busy naming the war; they're busy fighting the war, and maybe they call it a campaign to put some pizzazz and narrative on it. But that's kind of as far as it goes. They just really want to get that fights in because that's what's important to them.
I think we were just talking about this. I thought we were just talking about this on Hydra last night, but. Military commanders don't name wars; they name operations.
Right. I think it was Elo that said that. Was it the other day or somebody?
I don't know. I don't remember where it came from, but I remember it was being said within the last 24 hours.
Yeah. And on Sunday we were talking about something operation, and he's like, "Oh, I used the word operation because of his military background or something like that." I think it was.
That's right. That sounds correct.
Yeah, and that's true. Whether you call it a campaign or a war or whatever. I mean, a campaign or an operation, same thing. It's what your guys are doing. You can name that. It's your effort. But to name a war, you let history and the players figure all that out, and that's, I think, the prudent way to do it. That's what Groen does. He doesn't name wars. He lets the players historically name wars, but you need some distance from it. So you don't name wars before they happen. You name them years after. when you're referring to it.
Yeah, World War One wasn't named when World War One was happening. Like people called it the Great War. It was only when World War Two happened that people, retroactively decided to call the Great War World War One. Just as a little history thing for you.
Yeah. So anyway, all that is good fun. It is good fun. You can do it. It's all right. It's all right. It's you can definitely chat inside of public channels around wherever it is you talk and name wars and have fun with it and all that other stuff. But it's not what the commanders are actually focused on. So we do know this will be if it happens, it's got some buy-in from the top guy at Imperium, which is a big deal. If Matani is saying we're going to do a thing, it's probably going to happen because it takes a lot to move these guys. So if something is stirred up and it's causing a good excuse to mobilize, that's great, as Killah Bee said, because you're going to see a lot of big action, and that's what we want to see. And it looks like it could be shaping up to be a summer like 2018, like a big summer.
So as a CSM member, what will you do to combat war naming proliferation?
Well, like the War of Solveless Aggression, the Casino War?
Oh, God.
Well, that was a shame because World War B Casino War is a fight about naming and possessing the narrative of that war. And it's exhausting. It's the, I was opposed to World War B. Killah Bee, you were for World War B, right? After it was over.
CCP posted it that way, so I just went with it.
Yeah, like
Also, we called it that too.
I think it was like because they called it, and the big against it was because CCP named it. That was really like, why do you get the name wars? You're not a player in this. We decide what the name of the war is.
It was a typical CCP move to do something a bit prematurely. Where they basically, at the time, there was all this. That was like during the peak, was like after 2DW, right after Veil of the Silent was sort of fought over and lost, and then leading up to MTECO, basically leading up to the MTECO battle in during World War B, there was like 1 week in between where everybody was going absolutely ham on Reddit. There was propaganda left and right, and during that period, World War B came up, and since the news media started picking up on it, the gaming media started picking up on it. CCP wanted to make something official that the media could go with, so they decided to do World War B because it was the most prominent at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they made that the official name, which obviously it's not their position to name a war. In the Imperium, they call it the Casino War. Most of the people that were part of the MBC back at the time, they still call it World War B. Except TiS, who now also call it the Casino War. So there's those things, and I think at this point everybody just calls it whatever the fuck they want, to be honest.
Yeah, the thing is that people don't remember, but it was not called when CCP was first referring to that war, they were calling it the Easter War, right? They were calling it the Easter. They call it 3 different things: the Easter War, one other war, could have been the Spring War or something like that, and then they settled on World War B because it had a lot more buy-in by the players on Reddit, at least. So you saw a lot of people who really, really loved it and wanted to push that name. From the perspective of Goonswarm, World War B was them. It was war on Goonswarm, not the Imperium. And so it was a very divisive name to call it that. Say, hey, we're just here to attack goons. And I think a lot of the actual psychological warfare coming out of the attacking parties, the Money Badger Coalition, was, we're not out to get anybody else. So if you want to walk off CO2, go ahead, keep your space. If what do you call it? Who was in the north there had a huge presence? FCON. If you want to, yeah, they had a lot of guys, but if you guys don't want to defend, that's fine. We're after Goonswarm. That's who we're after. So get out of the way. And that is very bad for them, especially when you had the judge of all people saying CO2 is breaking away and we encourage all other allies of Goonswarmed to break away because they mistreat their allies and they're getting their comeuppance, and you should just stand out of the way. Carneros, you were in charge of Bastion at that time. Did you feel any pressure?
I'd like to point out that while they were saying that, their navies, we'll call them navies, were not lined up around Declan, the home of Goonswarm. They were circling around all the allies and chopping off the outside bits first. So there's a difference between the narrative and the actions.
Yeah. Also, there's a big difference between the Reddit narrative and the people that actually sort of did stuff. And like, at least for me, I mean, obviously it was my first real big campaign that I ever did, so I was super excited to do it anyways. Just because that was always my goal in EVE, to do something that would be politically relevant. So I was really excited to help out the military part of World War B. There was a lot of people involved, obviously, a lot of people that did all the diplomatic stuff and setting it all up, and then obviously Lenny and the casino for the money and blah blah blah. But I did a lot, not most of it. I did a lot of the military stuff, coordinating, and then that was just so exciting for me. So for me personally, it was mostly about the challenge, and then also so you're freeing the north of the imperial oppression. If you wanna phrase it that way, but whatever.
You were in Pandemic Legion at the time, and this was your baby. I remember you kind of said,
Yeah, I mean,
I can do this.
well, I wouldn't say it was my baby. There was definitely some other people that basically made this whole thing sort of happen in the first place. I wasn't really involved in the really early stages when they started planning that. We were actually, like, back in I was in PL back then, and we were proposed. We were given a plan for what would turn out to be what would be eventually. We were given a plan in late 2015. I think it was like November, December 2015. And all of the PLFCs at the time, the active PLFCs, we read the plan and we all laughed at it and were like, man, this is a stupid idea. We're not going to get involved. So we sort of declined the offer. They offered us a very substantial amount of money already at the time to get involved with PL. And we were like, no, fuck that. It sounds stupid. So we stayed out of it, and then we basically just watched the situation develop. We saw how serious they were and how many people they got on board. And when we saw that other people, like NC. For example, a couple of months, probably like a month later, we were also approached by Vince, who said, "Hey, have you guys had a look at this campaign or this proposal yet?" And then when he got serious about it, we also started thinking about it more serious. And then, by the time that 2016 came around, and first couple of months, like January, February, we got the pieces into place, and then we started actually doing stuff. And that was very exciting. But that's when I got involved. I didn't get involved until, like, I think March or Feb 2016, and the planning and all the talking and blah 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 that started happening like 3 or 4 months before that. I wasn't involved in that at all because I don't really like that.
Yeah. You know what? That's when Talking in Stations was starting, April 16th, 2016 or whatever year it was. We were starting right when the mobilization of groups were starting to move north. And we started looking over the map like the one you see here, and we were looking at the movement of troops and saying, something's happening here.
So it's important to note why it was, like, the reason that it was so important that PL, like, it basically, why I'm saying that, or why I think that PL and NC, we did sort of start the real war, in the sense that when we got involved, it started getting really really big, and it all happened really quickly. And that's because at the time the narrative was a bit different in the EVE universe. Basically, there were a couple of invasions, a couple of attempts to attack the CFC back in the day. They were called the CFC. There was a couple of those attempts, and all of them failed. Right. So there was this thought in the EVE community that, like, oh, it's pointless to attack the north. You can't beat the CFC. Fortress Decline or whatever. Right. It's unbeatable. You can't get in there. And that's why a lot of the alliances, they didn't really take this whole thing serious until PL and NC got involved, because at the time it was sort of like, oh shit, now that these people are involved, this might actually be something serious, and not just Fountain Invasion number 420 sort of thing. And that's why that mattered quite a lot, that we really committed to it. And I got a lot of opposition in PL. when I said I want to commit to this. I was the most active FC in PL at the time. The way that PL is run, or what was run at the time, was that whoever is the most active FC is basically, deciding what we do in terms of PvP. And I said I want to do this, and then they were like, okay, well, you can do it, Killah. But I got a lot of people telling me this is going to be shit and it's going to be garbage, blah blah blah. And but after 2DW and after Veil of the Silence sort of folded very very quickly, the whole region kind of was dropped within a very short period of time. All the people that like thought it wasn't possible actually started logging in for the MTechO fight. Funnily enough, only for that one fight, there was more PL. Like a lot of the really really old PL guard had resub. People like Nick Fuzzy and different, like even Manny, who was very inactive around that time. He came back, and everybody was there. All the PL veterans were there at the time, and they all joined for the MTechO fight, and then they witnessed tie-dye and all left again. But at least they were around. Right? So it was good times.
Yeah, it was weird because there was two battles that were major. I won't know exactly what systems they were in and what they were, but the first one showed that 1,200 people showed up to take out, I think it was a CSAA where Titans are built, and it was being destroyed. And there was 1,200 Northerners, or at that point Southerners coming. I call it MBC, and only 800 showed up to defend on the Imperium side, and that was like, whoa, we can actually outswarm them.
It was the first time they had been outnumbered in a number of years at that time, so that's why everybody got so excited about it.
Right, and I think that was what generated a lot of excitement. And then the next fight, 2,400 MBC showed up, and Goonswarm by then was like, we're on alert, we have to bring everybody, and they did, but they only got to like, I believe it was like 1,500. So they could have matched the fight before, but now the momentum was there and everybody was coming, and 2,400 people showed up for that second fight.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, and after that fight was lost, then it was like, hey, we can do this, and that's why they had a lot of the morale was incredibly high after those two fights.
It shows what you can do with with the right amount of momentum, right?
It was crazy. Like I still have a folder, or like there is a YouTube. Actually, I didn't make that, but there is a YouTube. What do you call it? Like a list of YouTube videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
that is just all the will be propaganda. Yeah, playlist, right? And I have that saved somewhere. It's pretty hilarious. Like some of it is so bad, and some of it is really good. And there was crazy amount. Like every morning, it was a time I didn't have a job at the time. I was just going to university, right? And I obviously didn't go to university because I was literally playing Eve for 12 hours a day.
Oh no!
Oh
no!
So I was just wake up in the morning and I would just look at Reddit, and there was like a bazillion new Reddit threads with some great propaganda, some really shit one, obviously. And then I would just sit down at my computer and then game until I went back to bed. It was a very fun month.
So it was the right time. It's the right time for you to do that.
Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, not really, because I did. I failed I failed 2 attempts at university just because of that. But
oh no,
let's not talk about it.
Yeah,
past history. I'm fine.
I could have redirected your life in the wrong way.
So long as you're at peace with that, and then
yeah, okay, I am very much. I don't regret it either. Like, but 100% don't regret it.
How much does that mean to you that you were a part of that in your real life? Like, is
in my real life, nothing at all. Like, it's not.
Is it important to you?
I have 2 lives, right? Like I have my Eve life and I have my real life. And in my real life, it's not important at all because I can't walk up to my best friend and be like, I'm this super big space commander. And He's like, yeah, I don't give a shit, bro. Let's drink a beer.
Yeah, you owe me a beer. So pay my beer.
That's like, it doesn't matter in my real life what I did in Eve, really. The only like the CSM thing started sort of implying some more stuff because I'm flying to Iceland because I'm playing a game, basically, right? And that's something that obviously has some implications on my real life. But I don't really go around in my real life bragging about my EVE achievements. It doesn't really matter.
No, I get that. I get that. I meant for you, for knowing that you were able to mobilize thousands of people.
Yeah,
or
I
help.
mean, it does. Yeah, probably. Like, I have some confidence. I know that I'm not bad at managing people to some extent. So it obviously gives me some confidence that, for example, at the what I'm going to do now in my job is basically exactly that, just on a smaller scale, because it's in the real world, but it's less people, right? But it still gave me some confidence that I know I can do it, basically, if I just have the right know-how. And so yeah, it did.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very real thing, is that the one thing, and I talked to Scion about this a lot, was that EVE is really a great simulator for real life. You can experiment here with a lower risk, right? You're not losing a bunch of money. You're losing some time. You're also not responsible for people's real life, where they have families, and it's not a real business in that way, but you can run it like a real business. So it's a simulation for real life. So you can practice some things. And I think being a fleet commander is practicing how to command people in tense situations. It's a very real experience. Even though the outcome's virtual, it's a real experience.
And the experience is nice, but it's also like I've been through the casino war on the other side, and for me, it's still like it was something we did together with our friends, with our team. It's something we can talk about, and then not all of it was fun, but we came out of it and made something great afterwards. And if the casino war didn't happen, then Delve wouldn't happen this day, and all those kind of things together. So it's like all those things together.
Yeah. Well, that's a thing. It's really interesting, because when Brisk was banned, first of all, it was stunning, because we all know Brisk and we like him, and he was, he's trustworthy and helpful, and he's really trying to help players and really making an honest effort. So when he got banned, it was shocking just because it was him. But the second shocking thing was, oh no, this has ramifications in real life. So one of the things that we were talking about at the time before it happened was, how much do you say EVE on my resume? EVE is a place where I learned how to do a thing, and that applies to real life work. Not everybody works in gaming like maybe Carneros does, but even if you're saying like, hey, I held a meeting with 15 people and I do it every 2 weeks, or I have a state of the alliance and I do that every month or every 6 months, these are real skills that you have. And because you're using technology to communicate with other people in other countries and other time zones, there's some organizational skills that you're building there. And that's why I don't think EVE is just like any other video game where you play with your friends in your same time zone. You're playing with partners all around the world, and you're using technology that businesses are using right now to try to get work done. So what I'm saying is, how much do you say, I'm proud of EVE Online, it's part of my real life, I use it as a simulator to practice things? Okay.
I don't put it anywhere on my CV at all.
Yeah, I don't either. But
Neither do I.
But I thought of it. I thought of like, and I know people have, and there was some talk, I think, at INN, and there was some talk at TIS. It's like, hey, maybe we should put this as a company on LinkedIn and treat it seriously. There's implications about like what an actual company is and what money is changing hands and all this other stuff that complicates things, because it's really more of an organization than it is any kind of a company, but it's kind of run like a company, which might be like organizations, nonprofits are run. I don't know. But yeah, some people do artwork for EVE Online, and they put that in their portfolio, like Graybuild does there. And I think that's true. It's not necessarily for a paying client per se, but it's work that was commissioned and you did it and it looks great. It's the same thing if you were to apply that to an actual client. And I know, because I've been a art director freelancer for a long time, or was, and all artwork is artwork. You're trying to sell a thing, and that's what you look at when you look at a portfolio. You're just like, how is this portfolio communicating with me? And whether it's EVE artwork or artwork for an actual client, I think it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter to some degree, but the artwork will speak for itself. All right. So we've been
and
at it an hour
well,
and a
and
half. Go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, like the artwork and the propaganda and the videos and the kind of Reddit drama and all this kind of stuff. It's really fun for people because they can do this at work, right? They can do this during the day, and and then when they come home, they actually get in the game, and you see that like all the drama and stuff kind of dies down. But it makes for an exciting day.
Yeah, I think Eve is a game that's easy to carry with you, for better or worse. One of the things that I think has a lot of players playing, and by the way, it's 300,000 accounts per month, which is pretty good. That's a pretty strong number, I thought. At this stage, right? We're at year 16 now. It had its 16th birthday. So 16 years after it started, the newness is gone. So the people that are here, I think, are real fans, and they're going to be here for a while. And I did talk with a CCPer, and I think that they think Eve has a certain amount of people that will always play this game. We're going to grow old with the game. We're going to play it as long as we can. We might even, have our kids play it too with us and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of that going on. It's a generational switch, which is amazing for a game. There will always be enough people to keep the lights on for EVE Online, and that's very encouraging. So everything above that is just gravy. It's just more people to interact with and to feel a more full universe in the game. So you do want people who are going to come and go, but there will always be a core of people to keep this game going. So Eve, in that sense, will never die. I'm going to thank some people here. Let's see. Not sure how to read this, but I got some follows, got some subscriptions. It's not reporting the ones that I saw, but Amar, was it? Gave out like 5 subscriptions to people, which was fantastic. And now we have OmniClan there who's subscribing too. And I just want to thank you guys for that. And there was somebody before, but it's off my scroll and I don't see it here, who had subscribed. So thank you guys for subscribing and for following. And if you can remember to follow us on YouTube, that would be a great thing, because we need some more subscribers or followers on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything, just hit follow. And that is YouTube/C for channel /Talking in Stations. That is our YouTube channel. And please subscribe there if you remember. All right, so we'll have to see where this war is going to take us. It erupted out of, I don't know, it basically was the CCP Peligro talking about banning botters from Imperium renters and fraternity renters, and that kind of started a bit of a match, a shouting match about who and how much from what, and Peligro came out and said, well, historically, this is where the people have been banned for botting, and that pie chart we talked about on Tuesday, you could see it on that show, Matterall, on Tuesday. And then there was like a lot of tension. It just seems to be a lot of tension and blame and that sort of stuff. And now it's erupted into a lot of stirring of emotions, and of course that leads to wars. And that's what we're going to see hopefully for this summer. Thank you, Ron. There it is. So it's youtube.com/C, the letter C, /Talking in Stations. Go there and follow. We want to get up to 1,000, and we're so close. We're up about 850, 900. All right. So the big news today, we'll wrap up here, is that I am going to be running, Matterall is going to be running for CSM 14. And this is a surprise to a lot of people, because I said I wouldn't do it for a long time. And then I changed my mind, but I did prepare my crew saying that this is a possibility, and they were very encouraging, and they gave me some things to worry about, which I really appreciated. And then I figured it out. And I would like to, at this point, tell you that if you're going to support me, I really appreciate it. This is in no way an easy victory or an easy win or anything like that. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to win unless you guys know who I am and like what I have to say and understand and trust my perspective, and to bring that to the table as decisions are being made and cooked up with a CCP. if you believe in that, if you believe in me, then please put me at the top of your list, the first seat on the ballot. I know people have ballots. They're going to be handed ballots, and that's what's happening right now. They're being settled right now. People are negotiating ballots. So you have Horde negotiating with NC, negotiating with maybe Test, whoever the FCs are that have friendships. That's all being negotiated right now. The ballots are not done yet. People are filling out their lists and stuff like that. I personally am not going to ask anybody to put me on their ballot. So that won't be coming from me. I want to see if somebody who's not on these ballots can actually win as well. And so in order for that to happen, you have to put me at the very top of your list and then vote your ballot. So I encourage you, if you like what we do here at Talking in Stations, if you like the stuff that I've talked about, if you believe in that, put me at number 1 and then fill out your ballot. I look forward to this, and I'm going to try hard. I'm going to try hard. I am going to try hard to win. I'm not going to just sit back and let it not happen. I'm actually going to try to make it happen. And I want to thank everybody for their support in advance, and I appreciate it. And of course, you guys can vote for whoever you want. I just hope that you think about the stuff that I've talked about today, and we'll talk about in the future. We'll have more discussions like this. And remember to put me at the top of the ballot and then vote your ballot. All right. Anything else, guys?
What an exciting chill stream.
It's not very chill, is it? Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty chill.
It was. There's the things are not answered yet, and there will be. CSM 14 comes up with this weird thing. You have to put in EVE Online. I always meant for me to show you guys how I write, or I've done it before. I've done like a writer's workshop and stuff like that live, or I've done some editing and stuff, but just to get behind the scenes. But it's too precious. People show up and they want to hear about EVE Online instead of watch me work. So I think that's what it should be about. Let me move this over to here, and then we'll call it a day. Oh, by the way, again, I think I mentioned this before, but Carneros will be doing the Sunday show with Elise Randolph and the usual. And so topics will be determined a little bit later. I'll be out. I have
Come hold my hand.
I will be on the phone listening with one ear in, hiding it from my wife.
You have to pay attention to your wife.
Oh, my God. I forgot to tell you guys that it is Carneros' birthday on Sunday.
Oh, don't mention that.
So you got to show up and watch Talking in Stations and wish him a happy birthday. Carneros on Sunday. It's his birthday, and he's going to be running the show.
I was already excited. Now I'm double excited. Happy early birthday, Carneros, every day.
Thank you.
And it turns out he has the same birthday as my wife, which is why I need to take her out in the morning, and we need to go have a nice brunch and stuff. So it's going to be great. Check it out. Talking in Stations on Sunday. The last thing I'll say is that we just did a show that was really good last night, and it was Talking in Stations about renters. Ron, you were there. What was it like?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? Where was I?
Renters yesterday, the show.
Oh, that was really, enlightening because, and we were kind of talking about, a normal person or a normal player, even like a medium-sized player, it's just not the kind of people that you get to interact with, or you even get to really ask questions to, right? Like, a normal player isn't going to know, hey, I can go to Lady Scarlet and, and I can rent from her. And so it was really around the mechanics of renting and, what it means and how people get into it, how people get out of it. And, I thought it was, just super, because we were really inquisitive about it, right? Like how does a single player control 600 systems? Like how does that even come about? So it was super interesting. I think, you can watch the Twitch VOD, and I think it'll be up on YouTube, and just listen to it if you want. But I really had a good time with that.
Yeah. And I think you guys asked some good questions. You kept it very basic so you could build up to more complicated questions. And I think you asked a really brave question to them, which was, what happens when you don't hold up your end of the bargain? And that was it was interesting to see how they answered that. I think it broke open, yeah, there are disagreements sometimes, and people have deposits, and sometimes they don't get deposits back, and it's kind of interesting to see like how they organize. And it's amazing to me that Lady Scarlet has her rental agreement in so many languages and has to basically deal with people from other countries that approach women differently and approach English differently. It's a lot to think about. So listen to that program. We'll have it out on podcast form today, and you can find it on YouTube right now. All right, that wraps up another chill stream. We are going to have a great weekend and see you on Sunday. Thanks for watching today. Really appreciate it. Again, Matterall is running for CSM. Put him at the top of your list and then vote your ballot, because I don't have a ballot to be on. So I need all the help I can get. So if you listen to Talking in Stations, please consider voting for me so we can get some representation in there that's more about the imaginary scale of what Eve can be to people that don't even play the game, as well as the balance that other people are going to provide. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you.